Yes, so the agenda for today. James Patterson, who we all know and love, are going to discuss our reporting requirements and communicating with us, staying in touch with us throughout the grant process. Then Jennifer Smith, our engagement director, she will talk about publicity and promotion. And then Gabby Sims, our new scholarship associate, will be talking about scholarships in Youth We Trust, which is our youth grant making program that has an application open right now. And then we'll have time for questions, and Dan Ross, our president, will come in and give a little closing. So, but before we get into that, I do want to make one kind of announcement, kind of notification sort of thing. That we are going to start doing some site visits. They're going to be very casual, very like low key, not part of your official reporting or anything like that. But we've gotten some feedback that that's something that some nonprofits might like, getting to interact with us or show us what your work is during throughout the grant cycle. We have shied away from that in the past. One, just from a capacity perspective, there's only so many of us and we can only go so many places. But also we really didn't want to be perceived as monitoring or being overbearing, or honestly taking any more of your time. You all are busy enough. You don't need to spend time squiring us around your buildings. But I do think we actually have kind of maybe tipped too far to the other side, and seems like we aren't interested in seeing your work, and that is absolutely not true. We also have quite a few new grantees this year, new organizations that we haven't worked with before, and we'd like to know more about what you're doing. So over the next couple of weeks, some organizations will hear from me. I'm going to contact you directly and say, hey, we want to learn more about what you do. Do you have a couple minutes to show off your facilities, talk about your programs with us, things like that. And that is going to be kind of targeted specifically to organizations we aren't as familiar with. But if you want us to come out and visit, if you have an event coming up, or you're launching something, or you just want us to have some coffee, whatever sounds good to you, please feel free to reach out to me specifically, and we will try and make it work. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to make it out to everything, because there are only 9 of us total, so we can only go so many places. But please, absolutely, please can get in touch with us to let us know if anything cool is going on. And Jennifer will talk later on about like the big check presentations and things like that, because we definitely want to do those as well. So. All right, so unless there's any questions, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Patterson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So as Sarah said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the reporting that we do, and then how to keep in touch with us during your grant period. So we'll go to the next slide here, and we'll talk about why reporting is important on your grant activities. So probably the biggest reason, as far as I'm concerned, is really that the results are what matter the most out of all of this. So you all spend an awful lot of time working on your application. You spend time researching for that, you developing your program and all of that. But at the end of the day, all of us are really interested in what those results are. That's what we're shooting for. And so it's really the prime focus. There's also this little IRS compliance piece that we have to do in order for us to have our charitable status as a public foundation, as opposed to a private foundation or some other types of organizations that would not be public. And so we have to monitor and make sure those funds are used in a way that complies with the IRS regulations. We have a stewardship angle to this too, because as you probably know, the Community Foundation is made up of many component funds set up by many, many different donors over the decades since 1953. And many of them had maybe a specific purpose in mind that they wanted to have addressed, or even if it's not specific, it's about charity and they would want it to be used charitably. So again, stewardship is a piece of it as well. A really important piece here for you really is looking at program development. So the reporting process actually provides a really good opportunity for reflection, to step back and look at what you were trying to do and whether or not that was accomplished and whether there are ways to improve it. Or maybe there's a need to try a different approach altogether. Who knows? So that's an aspect of it. I also look at it as when you get this down in stone, so to speak, it kind of becomes your hard evidence for the impact that you're making and the value really that you're providing to the community. And of course, that can help you with donors and other people that you want support from in the community. I look at it also as a legacy or a heritage or a history sort of the charitable activity that you're putting together. You can go back and look and see where it was at any given stage of the process when you have that. And I see there are opportunities for us to do promotional things too. When we see things in those reports, again, we'll have Jennifer talk more about that later. But a really important thing also to keep in mind is that we actually do use this data. It doesn't just come in and then never be looked at. We summarize each of these reports into an overall report that we share with our board and with our committee members who help make the decisions. Very confidentially, mind you. It's for their eyes only. It's not something we put out to the public generally. So we're fairly candid in these reports because we want our committee members to know what's working and what's not working. So from that perspective, it's a good idea to put your best foot forward. But I think the other thing is that we really rely on you and the work that you do in order to show the impact that we're making, right? Because we're giving you funds, but you're doing the work. So having that information, we're able to do that. So we do use the data. We'll go to the next slide. So what are some of the key elements? They're right here listed, but we'll just go through each one by one. We'll go to the next slide and look at the first piece here. And I guess I'd like to say that really the reporting, I know we have a new portal or it's the second year on the portal. The reporting really hasn't changed a great deal. It's much as it used to be, even before the new portal. But so the first piece here has to do with the demographic data that we collect. And there's a couple of important things here with the demographic data. Probably the main thing is that the reason we collect it is to make sure that we're serving who we're supposed to be serving, the broader community. That's the point. It doesn't have to do with only wanting to serve one sector or another, but it gives us a sense of whether or not we're serving who we should be serving. And as it relates to this, in the beginning, in the application, you used percentages, perhaps, of the folks that might live in Boone County that you're serving, or Ogle, and these were estimations, right? You're making an estimate based on what you know, what you can anticipate. With this, we're really looking for actual numbers when at all possible, specific numbers, actual counts if possible. And so it's the historic, what actually came through the door or who you were able to serve and so on. But we also do realize that in some cases, that's not entirely possible to get 100% accurate. So, we recognize that in certain situations, there'll be some estimations going on here as well. Just do the best you can. We'll go to the next slide. And yep, we talked about all that. So the next piece has to do with the description of the activity itself. And the first part of it is really a brief, very brief description that we then can use for reports and things. And it actually forms the basis of that reporting that we give to our board and to our committee members. So it's important for this to be very concise. We actually ask for 2 sentences. I mean, if you throw a third sentence in there, we won't penalize that, so, but we do want it to be, think about how can I describe most everything that we're doing in as few words as possible. It's kind of really the way to look at doing that part. And think about it maybe as, an elevator speech to impress a donor. You've got 30 seconds, what would you say to that donor about that charitable activity to encourage them to give and support? So maybe think about it in that way. And then the other description is much more free form. You have 5,000 characters that you can really describe your program, really give us the detail about it, really tell us your story about what you were able to have happen during that particular charitable activity. And then also describing anything that, you know, maybe you had to veer off course to be successful. That does happen, obviously. Not everything goes according to plan, right? So, but let us know there. But don't let it just be about telling us what you, the changes that you may have made. So, I mean, I have gotten reports where it'll just say, we didn't make any changes. Well, we really want to hear what you were able to do. So we'll go to the next slide and talk a bit about, well, that's our check slide there. So I have these little, narrative slides in here for two reasons. One is to make sure for me that I've talked about what I'm supposed to be talking about, right? That's part of it. But the other piece is then it's in your slide deck that you'll have access to after the thing. So we'll go to the next slide. So then we talk about evaluating results, and this is a big piece of it. And you'll see that this really mirrors what we had in the application, much like really much of the final report does mirror what's in the actual application. And in this particular case, this is for the program, project, or event grant type, as opposed to the capital commodity, which I'll show you in just a minute. But if you look at it, the first four fields are directly taken from the application. And literally, the response you put in the application will be pre-populated here. You'll see it in all four of these. So all from result one down to methods for measurement one will be pre-populated. So you could just take a look at what you said you were going to do. And then in the final field, you describe to what extent, you know, and how you were able to you know, work toward those targets. And, you know, you'll have the same number of results there that you had in your application. And so it's right there for reference. We'll go to the next slide and take a look at what the capital commodity format would look like. If you did a capital commodity request type, you would see that this is, again, very similar. The first two fields are going to be pre-populated as to what you said you were going to be able to do and what you wanted to do. And then the last one is for your opportunity to tell us how that went. All right. We will go to, oh, see, so I did forget something here. This time I forgot that you really should start collecting this data from the start. And you know, you've got your evaluation plan, it's already built. That's in your application, right? You've said these are the things that we're going to track. This is what we intend to accomplish. These are our targets. So now just collecting that data as we go along will make it much easier than trying to go back afterward and trying to put things together. And that's always more difficult. So it's an opportunity to demonstrate your impact. There are times also that as you get into the charitable activity and you thought, well, I'm going to track this data and these are our goals, and you're starting to do that and you're like, well, wait, this isn't going to work. I don't have access to this information, for an example. That happens sometimes where they thought that they would have access to, say, school data. It just is an example. Turns out they can't get that for some reason. So then you have to pivot, right? So you come up with a different way to measure. So if something like that happens, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'll work out, you know, and revise that plan so that we can get it to where it actually makes sense for you. We want you to be successful. So if you can help us help you be successful, we're all about it. So please do that. And then kind of related to that is that about this time of year, I go through each of our, each grantee's application and look at the evaluation plan. And if I see that there are some that perhaps could be stronger in some way, maybe just maybe fleshed out a little more or something along those lines, or if I just have some questions about it, I'll reach out to you and we may revise it then so that, you know, you have a better chance of demonstrating your impact. So we'll go to the next slide. And looking at the section of the final report that I like to call anecdotal evidence and program development. first of all, never underestimate the power of a personal story. Sometimes that can really resonate much more than a lot of the statistics and data and that sort of thing. So, and by a personal story, it doesn't have to just be about an individual. It could be about a group of people too, if it's more of a collective kind of thing. So either way, but I sometimes I will get the report back and there's nothing there, and it's just I look at that as such a missed opportunity to really share the impact and to connect the impact, because again, remember that, and sometimes these make it into that report that I talked about for the our board and our committee members. So the more you can connect, better chances are in the future, right? So important thing to think about there. The next two fields have a little bit more to do with program development, perhaps. And also provide an opportunity for you to sort of explain what happened when things don't quite go as expected, or when things need to, you needed to pivot for various reasons. As you can imagine, there was a lot of, well, you didn't have to imagine, you experienced it. There was a lot of pivoting going on during COVID, right? So we had a lot of that going on, and some of the reports are reflecting this, obviously. So the unanticipated results field, I like to say that, not many of the best results are unanticipated, right? You thought this was what was going to happen. But as it turns out, there's some other things came out of it that were really great. Well, that's where you want to put that. And then the anything learned is especially good for when things didn't quite go the way that you had anticipated, but you've looked at it and you thought, well, I think next time we're going to try to recruit people in this new format rather than the way that we tried to do it this time. Or we thought we had connections to these different avenues to recruit people, but turns out we didn't. And now we need to look at how we can do it differently. So it's a great place to put that. This section really gives you an opportunity in many ways to balance the report, especially if the targets, or if your results didn't exactly meet the targets. So it's a good spot for that. We'll go to the next slide and check myself here. Pretty much did that. Next slide, please. All right, taking a look at the additional context that you provide to us in the reporting. The first thing is that itemized list of expenses. Really important. That kind of goes back to that IRS due diligence piece. And the stewardship piece. And people ask a lot of times, well, is there a specific format you want this in? Because, in the application, we ask for you to complete the budget template. That's a specific format. In this particular case, primarily because it's staff that's reviewing these, we don't ask for a specific format. Literally a list of expenses. And the main goal is that they all seem like they relate to the charitable activity that was funded, and that they add up to equal to or more than the grant amount. That's pretty much what we're looking for here. And I rarely ever have any problem with this particular piece, but we do have to ask for it for the IRS aspect of it. So that is what we're looking for there. Then of course you have places to put your publicity that you've been able to garner through the charitable activity. And of course this is important because we want to see the success that you've had. We want the public, we want to encourage you to share with the public the success that you've had. And of course, Jennifer will talk more about this, but that's why we ask for these pieces right here. It's additional context in this particular case. We'll go to the next slide and check myself. And I think we did all right. So we'll go to the next slide then and talk about the request for photos that we have. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. You've heard that a million times, but the fact of the matter is it is. It just is. That's why we hear it all the time, right? So getting to see some of these wonderful pictures really helps us to understand the impact of the program in many ways. So you have we try to develop the report in such a way that you have multiple ways to connect with us and resonate with us in terms of the impact you've made. And by connecting with us and impacting and resonating with us, that includes our board, that includes our committee. So, and then whenever some of that gets sort of worked into promotional things, right? We would never do that without your permission. But in any case, so these pictures are really great. We use Dropbox now to collect these pictures. There's some advantages to that. I mean, the first advantage I'm going to say is that you can give us up to 10 pictures rather than before it was like, I think 2 or 3 we had upload fields for. So that gives you a little bit more opportunity there. We do ask for those to be in a JPEG, a PNG, or a PDF format so that it's easily read by us and then our reviewers as that comes around. We ask for you to use the format that you see on the screen here, and you don't have to scribble it down. You'll have the slide deck, and it's also on the final report itself right there in the field. And we know that there are some times that you need to keep the identity of some of the folks that might be in the pictures confidential, or for some other reason you don't want it shared. Please just use the do not use at the end of that file name. And the other thing about the file name, you want to create the file name in your Windows Explorer program before you upload, because you won't have a chance to change it in Dropbox. It'll take whatever the file name is that you have. So that you name the file in this format on your computer, basically. All right, we'll go to the next slide and take a look at what that Dropbox page looks like. So here it is. You can see it has the format there. You would just click the blue link. When you click the blue link, it will open up and you can drag and drop the photos in there. So just like the application, honestly. So we'll go to the next slide here and talk about a few things that you should sort of keep in mind. Your report is going to be due on March 1st, 2023. So we give you approximately 14 months to do that. And you can actually preview this report right now. Let's pop to the next slide and take a look at where that is. So it is currently in your portal account on our web portal. So from your applicant dashboard, you'll see that you have the active request tab, and within that you'll have the grant that is currently being funded, and you'll see that there's the final row is the final report, and on the final column of that row there is a link to go to. That was distracting. I'm teasing. No, it was there's a link to go to that final report, and you can go in and take a look at it right now. I mean, heck, you can even go in and start working on it if you have bits and pieces that you want to, do as you go. So it's right there for you is the point. Let's go to the next slide. There we go. So preview the report. That will help you make sure you have everything in order as you go now, making it easier to collect the data and information. I don't know if you can hear my dogs in the background, but they apparently are waking up and they're barking. So there are 4 of them. They're small but mighty. And when they get going, it's all you can hear. So anyway, as far as reporting goes, be specific as you can so that we really know what happened. Try to avoid industry jargon. We all have jargon, right? The community foundation world has jargon. Foundation world has jargon. We all do. And if you're not in the field, it's hard to understand, and in acronyms, holy cow. If you're going to put an acronym in there, give us the word first, the spelled out version, and give us the parentheses with the acronym. I get it. Everything's like 16 words now, right? So you have to use the acronyms. That's fine. Just give us a definition. So that's helpful too. And the biggest thing I want to stress really on this particular slide is failure is an option. It happens. Sometimes we think that we're going to be able to make a difference doing something a certain way. Maybe we think we have a particular performance as an arts organization that's really going to resonate with the public, but for some reason it just doesn't. This stuff happens, right? But we have built into the report places for you to talk about that. And a lot of learning doesn't happen unless there's failure, right? I mean, that's just part of life. So we get it. And it won't be a black mark. We don't have a blacklist anywhere. The only blacklist there ever might be, and this is even a stretch, but would be if you're just dismissive of compliance and reporting and things like that. That would be the only time. And that doesn't happen. I mean, by and large, that does not happen. So failure is an option. Please be candid and honest. All right, we'll go to the next slide. Really important to keep us in the loop. This is the communications piece. Just like, with your parents when you were a kid, or with your teacher, or with your boss, they don't want to be surprised, right? If something's going on, give us a call, let us know, especially if it's something that may become public that's sort of counter to what we had talked about in the original application. So that's really important. We also would like to be, well, if it's possible, we would like to be a resource to you. I've done a lot of work with the evaluation plans and data collection and that sort of thing. And so if I can help you think through some of that stuff, I'm happy to do it. Jennifer is a whiz with communication. She knows a lot of really cool tools to use, and she'll talk about some of that stuff here in a minute. And she's got a gift with language that I use routinely. So we would like to be resources to you. We're in this together, quite honestly. The work that you do is a reflection on us. And so we want to be helpful. So the other point is to, to submit your report while the information's fresh, right, in your mind. That's a good idea. That way you're not having to try to probe the recesses of your mind to pull it all back out. But on the flip side, making sure not to submit until the charitable activity is actually complete. We have gotten reports that are in the future tense, and they really need to be in the past tense. You need to have already done it, right? And related to the next point here, if March 1st is coming along, and you're not going to be done yet, there's different things that have delayed it for whatever reason. We don't want you to submit the report by March 1st just because of the deadline. We want you to ask for a report extension, and we give those pretty routinely. And we've done a ton of that, obviously, during COVID. Been a lot of reasons to do that, along with the next point on the slide, the grant amendments. We've had to do a bunch of those for COVID as well. But even before COVID, these were fairly routine. Things would come up where you needed to spend the money somewhat differently. Maybe you thought you were going to have one staff person, but it turns out you need to have two, and you're going to pay them a little less or something, or those kinds of things. Amendments are necessary from time to time, so please reach out and talk to us about it. And the interim reports, you'll remember from your application that if you had an open grant with us, we ask you to upload that interim report. That's an important piece of communication. It lets us know where the project is at. So, be thinking about that if you're going to apply next year, and what you would submit for an interim report. All the specifications for that are on our website on the grant resources page, and it basically amounts to a one-pager. Email. So it's not anything real difficult. So then that leads me to grant news and events. We want to know about those things, which is a great segue to Jennifer and the communications piece. So thank you all.
Thanks, James. So I put this slide, don't panic, at the beginning of my section, because we really want to be sure that you're not feeling any stress or panic about publicizing your grant or communicating about the grant you received from us. Obviously, we want you to share that good news, but it should not be an element of stress. And we recognize that everyone is under a lot of extra stress this year for the third calendar year in a row. So please do not let this be a burden to you. We really just want to inform the community about your work. It's our goal that more good stories about your good work get out there to more people. And so that's like the main reason why we ask you to publicize your grant. Yes, we want the community to know that you got a grant from us, but mostly we want them to know about your programs and projects, and to continue to build credibility for the awesome nonprofits that are throughout our region. We also want to recognize the donors who help make these grants possible. As James mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of different funds here that all feed into community grants. And some of those have specific names, like actual donor names connected with them. And you've seen that in your grant award letter, you know about that, but we want to be sure that those folks get recognized. And so that's why we ask you to name those funds in a specific way. And we also, we believe that success breeds success. So we want you to get continuing support. And we think that talking about your success at receiving a grant helps build confidence in other donors and other funders. So talk about your success as a nonprofit receiving grants can make you more successful getting other grants in the future. As far as publicity timing, use your judgment. We don't have a deadline in terms of when the press release should go out or when you should talk about your grant. Some of you have already sent out press releases, and that's fine. That's absolutely fantastic. But if you haven't yet, and it makes sense to do that later in the year, closer to the timing of your event, or if you're doing a physical improvement to a building or something like that, that it's happening later this year, or if the program that we're funding is not happening until another time in the year, wait until we're closer to that. That just makes more sense to me, and I think it probably makes more sense to you to talk about the thing that's happening when it's happening. So again, no deadline for that other than sometime before the next grant cycle. If you get unexpected coverage, sometimes it happens that a news source, even without you prompting it, will pick up a story. Let us know. That's fantastic. So if you do a bunch of promotion and then later on you get some unexpected coverage, let us know. We'd love to share that with our followers too. And then reporting results. That's a great time to talk about to time your publicity as well. Like if you've had a really good success with some program, or you had attendance at your event that just like blew your expectations out of the water, that's a great time to do some publicity as well. So we really leave it up to you. We're flexible in terms of when communication will happen. We do ask that you send a press release out about your grants at a time that makes sense for you. We've provided a media contact list and a sample press release. You received a physical copy of that media contact list with your grant award letter. It's also available digitally on this URL here at our grant resources page whenever you need to find it. And you are not required to use that media contact list. If you have one of your own, if you have other people at those media outlets that you have a relationship with, use that. Use whatever makes sense for you. We just provide it as, if you don't have a list like that, you can use ours. I say be selective because some of them are geographic focused, like the Ogle County Life, for instance. If your grant doesn't impact Ogle County, maybe don't send your press release to those folks. You can if you wish, but just be selective, do what makes sense. Refer to the community grants program specifically and the fund specified in your award letter in the body of your press release. So exactly in your award letter, the name of the fund will be typed out specifically, and we ask you just put that in verbatim. That's really the only thing that we care that you put in like exactly as it is, and that's for the donor recognition piece. Another piece that you can just copy and paste is the CFNIL boilerplate language, that about CFNIL that goes at the end of a press release. Just use that exactly. Sometimes it helps to find the S, the story, a statistic, or a soundbite. Yes, the press release is talking about you getting a grant, but really the story is your program, the good thing that you're doing, the work that you're doing. So find that personal story like James mentioned, or find a statistic that's really meaningful or tangible for folks to grab onto, a soundbite from a program participant or a board member or donor or whoever, but like something really tangible sometimes is helpful for the media outlets to like cling on to that. We know, just as you do, that you cannot guarantee that the press is going to talk about your work as you want them to. So give them something like that they can easily put out. Want help with composition? I have a weird satisfaction helping with editing and wordsmithing, so do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to review press releases, social media posts, whatever, just reach out. I'm happy to help with anything like that. And when you distribute your press release, please do copy me on that email. That's not so much me checking in on you as it is another prompt for me, another little reminder, hey, this good news is happening and you should share it too, Jennifer. So thank you for that. You also have established audiences and channels that make sense for your organization. And some of you are Facebook whizzes, some of you have newsletters that are just fantastic and get a lot of traction. Annual reports are another great place to talk about successful grants or donor communication pieces, or if the grant funds a specific project that has like a tangible item, a sign or a plaque outside of a room that was renovated, a program like a literal program if you're putting on a theater production, you know, a literal program like that, a t-shirt or some other type of clothing for an event. Those are places that you could also publicize your grant. So do what makes sense and where you're going to get the most traction for the message. Social media. So we are on Community Foundation is on 4 social media channels. You'll see them there and our handles. And please remember to tag us and to like act live, you know, do a live tag with that @ so we know that you tagged us. If you just type out our name, like the whole name of the foundation, we don't necessarily see that. You know, if I happen to be scrolling and I see it, great. But if you tag us, then I will know for sure. And that is a prompt for me to like your post and comment and share it and all of those things. If you choose to set up, if your grant is funding an event and you choose to set up a Facebook event, you can add us as a co-host, and then that appears on our page as well, and all of our followers will see it. So that's up to you. At least let us know when the event date is confirmed if your event date is not yet confirmed, so we can help share news about the event out with our followers. And we really recommend, and this is just a general, like, it's not required for us, but it's generally a good idea to use photos and really even video. I should add in that using video is really important these days to get some traction online. But whenever you can, size them for the specific channels so it looks the best that it can. And I'll share a tool with you later on about how to do that. So James did mention earlier about a picture being worth 1,000 words, and I'm putting those pictures up again and included the logos this time for those organizations. We love to see the pictures that come in with your grants, and not all of you are fortunate to have, you know, some of your projects maybe don't have these like beautiful children that you can share photos with. I mean, like, who doesn't want to look at this beautiful little baby and feel just completely moved by the Children's Home and Aid doula program? Like, this just captures this program that's intended to build connection between mother, you know, healthy attachment between mother and child. Like, it's so moving. Or the shelter care photo here of this beautiful little girl who, this program is called Housing Homeless Families with Dignity. And gosh, can't you feel that looking at this little girl? Or I love this woman down here from the Boone County Council on Aging. Their grant this year is supporting a program that let's see, I'm looking for the exact words, decrease social isolation and loneliness in older adults. And who wouldn't want to get a phone call from this woman? Like, she just looks so warm and endearing. Like, I love it. So, but even those of you who have grants that aren't something so tangible, like a cooler full of milk from the Northern Illinois Food Bank, it looks just like this is a grocery store that you and I will go to every day. And to think about their clients that are able to go in, their guests, and just walk up to a cooler and get milk and take it home and feed their family. I found just a picture of milk cartons in a cooler really compelling. So you all have photos that will work really, really well to talk about not just this grant, but your work in general. And yeah, use photos whenever you can. So enough said about that. Logo usage guidelines. So you all have organizational logos and you want them to look their best, and so do we. So we ask that you use the logos that we provide to you PNG versions are available at our website. I can also email you more high-res versions if you need them, or another alignment, whatever. Like, just let me know if you need something different than what we've already provided. Use the logo that makes sense in the place that it's working. Sometimes the more square one works, sometimes the horizontal one works better, but please don't alter or stretch it like this down here. Oh, there's nothing more painful for a communication person to get a communication piece and see that this has happened. Oh, to your brand asset, like that's really painful. So please don't do that. If you need help with that, let me know. We are available to come to you for press conferences, photo ops, and more. If you have a creative idea about how to promote your grant, let us know. We'd love to come and get a fun photo. We have this big check. It's a dry erase check, so we don't leave it with you that you feel obligated that you're gonna have to like frame it and keep it somewhere. No, you don't have to do that. We'll bring it back with us, but it makes for a really good photo. Some of you have already been reaching out to us about setting up these opportunities, but feel free at any point to let us know, and we're happy to come to you. We would love to do that, and it can happen during the work hours or before and after, whatever works. We're doing one tomorrow morning, and we're just excited to do that and to join you and to see your good work. A few resources. I always like to provide you with a few resources to walk away from this presentation. So I talk about Canva every year, and there's a reason. It's such a fabulous tool, and nonprofits can get the full professional account for free. And this tool just gets more robust and more robust. And in fact, I've started seeing job descriptions say the candidate should have experience with Canva. It's become so ubiquitous in the communication realm. So I highly recommend it, and it's so easy to resize your content for multiple channels. Like I talked about, you set something up for Facebook and just say resize for Twitter, and it does it. It's so great. Unsplash is a place to get free stock photography, like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of photos, and you don't have to do any attribution. So that's really great. All of like the stock photography that's in this presentation came from Unsplash. FreePic and Flat Icon are from the same company. One has vector style graphics and one has vector style icons. And those are free as well. Linktree is a new one that we've started using. So it's really helpful for Instagram, and I'll show you how it works. So on Instagram, if you use that at all, people always say like, visit the link in our profile, but Instagram only lets you put one link. It doesn't let you put a live link in your posts, and it only lets you put one link in your profile. So unless you like have a lot of time on your hands and want to switch that link every time you say link in profile, this can be really helpful. It puts in this one link, Linktree, and then that takes folks to a page where it sort of is like this running list of all your recent news. You manage this to get your most current thing up on top, but so you can say link in profile as many times a day as you want, and folks will find those links in one place. I also use it in my email footer, what's new with CFNIL, so that it's always just a place where everybody, like the most current things that are happening with us, people can go to one place and find them. Being cognizant that in your imaging, we want to be representative of our full community. So even like stock photography is recognizing this, or stock galleries of illustrations and things like that. So these are some resources where you can find pictures, illustrations, graphics, whatever, that represent a much more diverse range of folks from our community. So this is just for your general use. You don't have to worry about that in relation to us, but just for your general use. These things are out there, and just as we want to represent our full community, I know you do too. So if this makes sense to use, please do. But most of all, don't panic. We are here as a resource to help. If you want to bounce some ideas off of me, I'm here for that. But we just really want your good work to get out there to the community. And we want to be helpful whatever way we can to accomplish that. So I will hand it off to Gabby to talk about In Youth We Trust grants.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Gabrielle Sims. I am the new scholarship associate, like Sarah mentioned earlier. I started just a few months ago. I think it'll be 4 months at the end of January, so I'm fairly new. But I'm the scholarship associate and I'm the staff liaison for In Youth We Trust. And right now we have a grant application open now. It'll stay open until March 1st, and it's the youth cycle of our Youth We Trust grant. So right now we are looking for applications from youth-led organizations within the community. So if there is a youth-led organization within your larger one and they're looking for funding, this is a great opportunity for them to apply and potentially get some money for that. Again, the deadline is March 1st, so make sure to take advantage of that. And then just briefly about scholarships, the deadline for our scholarship applications is February 1st. It's been open since December 1st. So we are nearing the end of our application cycle for our scholarships. I'm your go-to person for that. My contact information is there on the board, as you can see, or on the screen. And so if you have questions about scholarships or about Youth We Trust grants, I am your person. Feel free to reach out at any time.
And before we close everything up, we would never miss an opportunity to ask for volunteers. I'm sure you all understand that feeling. We work with about 150 individual community volunteers who help us make the selection for our scholarship program. So we typically have anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 applications that have to be reviewed and then work in teams to make recommendations to our board of trustees. And so we depend on our community volunteers to help us with that process. The more we have, the easier it is for everybody. But it's a really awesome way to get involved and hear about all the amazing things that our community is doing. These students are amazing. They are doing so many things and are so passionate about so many things that we have one volunteer who every year leaves and says, my faith in humanity has been restored, because that's what you get to see at this process. It's the most hopeful way to volunteer in my mind. It's very time bound as well. It's a pretty intense 2-week period, but that's it. You can review all the applications at home in your own time, and then you just come to one in-person meeting or virtual meeting. We'll see how it goes this year to make the final selections. So if you're interested, let me know. We actually have an advisor recruitment meeting coming up on next Tuesday. So that would be when you get to learn about all the details of what it means to be a scholarship volunteer. So if you're interested, please get in contact with any of us. You can contact me or Gabby or Lisa DeLang, our administrative assistant. Any of us would be happy to get you signed up. So that's our official plug. But from here, does anyone have any questions about anything? Any of the stuff that you heard today? You can drop it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, whatever makes sense.
I have a question. This is Brian Lingus with Nick's Wish. The title of our grant was to fund 2 wishes within the CFNIL region, and we requested $12,000 to do that. Well, we got $6,000, for which we're very thankful, but obviously that doesn't match the title of our grant, and each wish costs, well, to fulfill the wish, it costs about $6,000 for each wish. So I'm wondering, I saw earlier you had something about a grant amendment. Is that what I would do somehow to, well, I'll stop.
James, do you want to take that?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So reach out to me about that individually through an email, probably is the best way to do it. But yeah, and that one's super simple, because obviously the reason you're doing 1 wish as opposed to 2 wishes is because we funded you for essentially 1 wish. So yeah, that one's super easy.
Great. Very good. So I fill out the grant amendment part?
Well, just email me and
okay.
You and I'll have a conversation about it.
Great. Very good. Thank you, James.
Yeah, no problem, Brian. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd like to add something about the being a scholarship.
Yes, you are a scholarship reviewer. Yeah.
Yeah, and because of we actually got the grant for our project. I'm not going to be able to do it this year, and I'm really going to miss it. But it is really rewarding if you have the opportunity to do it even 1 year. It is intense. There's a lot of reading, but so worth it. It is amazing what some of these students or hopeful students are the goals that they're trying to reach and the obstacles that they have. It's you really feel like you're making a difference.
Oh, thanks, Sue. We really appreciate that. And we will miss you this year.
I am really sad I can't do it, but
There's always next year.
Yep.
All right. Well, unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to hand it off to Dan Ross to end the day.
Good morning, everyone. It's my favorite picture. We'll have to figure out how to decorate me for Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day coming up. But
Jennifer's up to the challenge.
Hey, don't give her ideas.
I can be decorated for each holiday. Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you not only for taking time this bright, chilly Friday morning for joining us to come and learn about the grantee process, but then also just thank you for what you do. We at the Community Foundation can only really achieve results through the good work that each of you do. We are blessed to have an incredibly generous group of donors that have entrusted us to find folks like you to work with to do good for our community. And so it's an amazing process for us to get to go through. We'd love to fund everyone for everything they ask for. And so that's the downside of it, but we're thrilled that we were able to, through these the Army of Community Volunteers Sarah was talking about, to be able to provide the funds this year. So again, just thank you for what you do. Don't hesitate to contact me or any of the members of the team with any questions, comments, or concerns you have, and have a great afternoon and weekend.
Great. Thanks, everybody.